Okay, we're going to walk through this lab on creating a Windows virtual machine in Microsoft Azure. So again, this is the Windows version. There's another one for the Linux version of this. So again, this is our intro, and we'll do it now. One thing to pay attention when you're going through these is that watch for things labeled exercise. Those are places where you have to do things. So there's two exercises here that we'll have to do. So we'll start with our introduction. I'm going to go through this relatively quick, so not read everything to you, so because you can read all this. So you should take your time, kind of read through this, make sure you can understand some of these concepts here. So it introduces virtual machines, different kinds of virtual machines. We'll be creating a Windows server. In the other the next one we created Ubuntu machine. So there's different kinds of machines you can create. Every machine we'll select CPU and a memory, so that's a virtual machine. We'll have a storage with some virtual disks that'll be mapped to this. The virtual disks will generally hold an operating system and some temp data and some data. So we actually will generally have three disks set up. We'll have a virtual network so we can talk to this virtual machine, and an interface and a public IP address so it's accessible to the whole internet for this. And most of this stuff will be done for us here. One thing we have to watch is sizing the machines. There's different sizes. The common general purpose ones are these DS ones or DV ones. Some are memory intensive for like databases. Some can give you graphics card things for rendering or machine learning stuff. Some are better for web servers, these more high computational stuff. So but we'll just generally use these general purpose ones. So that's what we're doing. We'll be creating disks, operating system disk, a temp disk, and we'll create another data disk. So these two are done for us. We will add one data disk to our stuff. Generally, nowadays, the Azure and places like this will manage the disks for us and set these up. We don't have to do so much with these. And same with the network stuff. We'll talk a little bit more about networking later on when we get to the networking unit in this class. So this is step 3. We're going to set up our, so this is an exercise, so we have to do something. We have to activate our little sandbox. It's a temporary learning environment. I've already done this and it's running. Usually you have an hour. Now I've been working on this for a little bit, so I have 44 minutes left. And we're going to create our virtual machine. So again, since this is exercise, I've got to watch. This link is really hard. So number one is to sign into this Azure portal. So I'm going to open this up into a new window here. So that will open up this window here, Azure portal. Make sure you're logged into your CSS account here. If it asks you to create a guest login or sign up for a free service or whatever, you're probably not logged into your CSS one. So you shouldn't. If you log in through your CSS one, I think it'll just take you right here for that. Okay. Now we're going to create a new resource here in a virtual machine, a Windows server. We're going to create a small disk Windows 2019 data center server core, and that's the operating system kind of we're installing into this. For this. So we're going to go to, again, you can go to virtual machines and do create. You can hit create resources. Here there's different options for different types of things. You can search. I'm going to do it slightly different when they describe. I'm just going to say create a virtual machine for this and bring this up here. And that'll get us down to these steps here. So we want to do a concierge subscription with our learning key, so our resource group, so we don't get charged for this. Concierge subscription should be in there. Our learning key should be available if you're in the sandbox. The machine name, I'm just going to give it some name here. Now you can have you can have underscores or spaces, but you can have dashes in the name. So there's some common naming techniques. We're not going to worry too much about those. Different companies will do different things. Regions, US West. Again, you can select any region in the world for this. Infrastructure redundancy, securities type, all that things can be standard. Here's where we wanted to do this. We want a Windows Server 2019 core. So again, I've selected this before, so it's listed there, but I can hit see all images and see all these images. I'm going to go select Windows Server here. Oops, not that one. Do this one. And again, if you look at the instructions here, I wanted what does it show here? a small disk Windows Server Core Gen 2. Small disk Windows 2000 Core Gen 1, Gen 2. That's with containers. I just want a Core one down here. It really doesn't matter, but again, it's nice to select what they want. Simple enough. Okay. And again, the disk size here, I want the disk to be a standard DS1 V2. So I want that to be a DS1. Again, you can look at all the sizes. There's quite a few sizes. I want a DS1 V2 here. And that'll be the size of our machine. So it'll be, well, a single CPU and 3.5 gig of memory for that. It's basically $100 a month, $91 a month here. So we want to set up a administrator account. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to go Azure user and a password. So generally when I'm doing these, I just open up like a notepad or something else to keep track of some of this stuff. So I'm going to paste in make up a username, either CSS user or in this case Azure user, and then a password for this. So I've got both of those set here. Okay, and just note that it is opening up a special port 3389 for remote desktop, because that's how we're going to connect up to this machine. Okay, so we've done so again, this is all the configuration they say. We've done all that, and now we're going to go on. They just kind of explain these different values. So again, this is a good thing to read through and see what they are doing. And then we're going to go on to the disks. So in the next is the disk setup. And again, the only thing we need to do here, all this is good. It creates an operating system disk and a temp disk. We need a data disk here. So we're just going to create a new disk for data. And we're just going to say, okay. So that'll show this new disk down here, a 1 gig disk for data, just to have done that. So again, they're showing this, and then they're showing this 1 gig disk that they created there. Okay, and that's what we do, create that one disk. And now we're going to configure the network. It just says accept all the configurations and then go on. So we can go to networking. We could actually have gone to review and create there, but again, since we're doing all the defaults, what they I think want you to look at is make sure that you see that it is setting up a network for you here, and then we can do review and create. So this will tell you your hourly charge. 12 cents an hour may not sound bad, but that does add up over time significantly. So, but again, you won't be charged that because we are in a sandbox here. So, okay, I'm going to hit create, and I'll start creating that. So I've reviewed it. Now I can create. So that was our exercise. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about RDP remote desktop into this. Now there's two ways of connecting the machines: generally secure shell SSH and RDP remote desktop here. So, and we can use both. We've used both, like on our Raspberry Pi. Secure shell just gets you a command line, and remote desktop brings up the full desktop as if you're sitting at that machine for that. So it talks about that. This is the window we'll see later on in Windows to connect that here. Now you can do remote desktop with just a password, login and password. That's what we do with Raspberry Pi, but we're going to download an RDP file and do that. So we're going to continue, and this section is an exercise. So again, it'll be back to our sandbox, and we can connect to our remote desktop. So we're going to find our virtual machine, make sure it's running, and then hit the connect button. So let's see. So deployment's still in progress. I'm just going to wait a sec for this to get done. Okay, this got done, and so I'm going to go to the resource. Deployment is complete. The machine is started. So here's the machine. It talks about this machine, gives a status of it. It says it's running, gives a public IP address. We have a connect option here. Again, if you don't see this, if you get lost somewhere, you can always go home, click on it's a virtual machine, click on one of your virtual machines. I have actually two running right now. I created one as a test here. So this is the one I'm working on now, and now I'm at this window, so that's good. Okay, so we can determine the VM been running. You can stop and restart it, that sort of stuff. We can see the public IP address. So I often like to copy that and keep track of that, but in this case we probably won't need it because we're going to download the RDP file. Okay, so we're going to download the RDP file here. So we're going to connect RDP. So here's our machine here, and we're going to do connect RDP. And it'll give us some information, tell us again our address and the port, and we'll download this RDP file. It'll save it here to our local machine for us to use. Now we could just run that directly, but we're going to edit it. Particularly we're going to change the display so that it doesn't go in full screen here. So I'm going to find that file here. Let's see. So here's the RDP file. I'm going to edit that. So I'm going to right click in Windows and choose edit, and it'll bring it up in this screen. So this is kind of our remote desktop screen. We're going to want to enter some information here. Oh, change a couple settings. The main thing I want to change is the display and not have it full screen. And I'm going to make it quite a bit smaller so I can fit it on my little, I record at a much smaller size than my full screen. So here's our remote URL, IP address and port number. I'm going to put in my username, which was Azure user for this, and then I'm going to connect up to this machine. I'm going to say OK to that, let it connect. It asked me for my password on this remote machine, so I'm going to go or copy it. What did I use as a password? Here's what I used. Paste that in there and connect up to that. And again, it says that the identity of the remote machine, this is the first time we've connected to a remote machine. I want to make sure we want to connect to it. You should say yes here, and it should connect up to that remote machine. So this will be our remote desktop that's running. Now, just to warn you, it seems like on campus, if you're plugged into the Ethernet, like in the labs, RDP might be blocked. Here we had some trouble connecting to it, but on Wi-Fi it seemed fine on the labs. I'm at home, so I can connect up to it here too. So this is my remote desktop connection. Okay, I've been trying to fix this out. I've connected now to the server, but again, I'm just getting this black desktop with just a command line here. But I should see a normal Windows server here. I'm not sure. I'm looking online, and there seems to be often this is tied to some problems with video quality or color quality on your monitor, the size of this, and I'm not sure why I'm not seeing the desktop. So I'm gonna, and you might be having similar problems. I've got this work before, but again, I'm at my home computer, it's not working. But if you do get it to work, you can go on and then do this next stuff, which is to just open up your file manager, and we want to initialize the disks. We created this data disk, but it's not set up, so we want to run the disk management disk manager and set up that second disk there. And then we can open the ports on this. We generally want to be able to access this and run a Windows server or other ports here, so we can access that, and we can actually go in to our Azure network and open up certain ports. So we could go in here and look at our settings for networking, and we can add inbound ports that we want to set up. But again, you don't have to do any of that for now, and then we're done here. And so we'll just do our knowledge check for now. Okay, so our knowledge check is just, when we're creating a virtual machine server and we want to connect through remote desktop, we have to have the RDP port open. You're running this, what's the best practice for where the data should be stored, and again, we should create a separate data disk generally on servers. And when you're setting up network security, if none of the rules going to fall in, what do? What's the default rule? And that's deny all. So you should be able to check your answers here. So if you didn't get this running like I did, you can still go through this, submit a picture of, if you have for the lab, of what you've got running on this for this. Hope you enjoyed this.